We're live.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to this meeting of the Education Committees in the House and Senate. We have a full agenda today with TEDCO and the Maryland Library Association. Do we have any opening remarks, Mr. Chairman? Chair Zucker?
Just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, just use the raise hand feature under the reactions tab. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we can hear from our analyst. We'll start with the Maryland Library Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Samuel Quist. I'm just going to share my screen here and begin the presentation for the Maryland State Library Agency. All right, there we go. The fiscal 22 allowance for the Maryland State Library Agency increases by 1.2 million to a total allowance of 92 million. This increase is mostly due to the mandated funding for the agency's three main grant programs that they administer. Before we get into the fiscal 22 allowance, we did have one note in the analysis about fiscal 2020. The agency did receive some federal CARES Act funding towards the end of fiscal 2020. They received approximately $546,000, which was distributed among the various public libraries in Maryland for costs associated with responding to the pandemic, as well some costs associated with efforts to increase Wi-Fi access due to the closure of library buildings. Moving to the chart, Exhibit 1 for the fiscal 22 allowance. As you can see, the three main grant programs, they make up the majority of funding for the agency. The biggest being public library aid at 47.1 million, or about 51% of the budget. The state library network funding totals 19.8 million, and aid for local library employee fringe benefits totals 20.5 million. And then the remaining 5% of the budget include the personnel and operating expenses costs for the agency. On Exhibit number 2, this shows the more detailed breakdown of the 22 allowance. So as I mentioned previously, the main change is 1.2 million for the three grant programs. The biggest is the public library aid program, which increases by 696,000. This is partially due to the per capita funding amount for that program increases in fiscal 22. And then the other two, the aid for local employee fringe benefits increases by 248,000, and the state library network funding increases by 232,000. The other personnel and operating expenses for the agency largely offset each other. So moving to the key observations, our first key observation is for library programming and attendance. These two metrics increased in 2020 despite the impacts of the pandemic and having to switch everything to virtual programming. The agency was actually able to take advantage of some of that virtual programming in order to increase outreach to participants that were maybe not previously able to attend due to physical location. So these metrics both tended to upward. As I said, they did switch to all virtual programming and shortly after March, after the pandemic started. Exhibit number 4 shows the number of digital materials owned and accessed by Maryland libraries. This had actually started trending upwards in years previous, even before the pandemic had started, due to trends in publishing and book sales. More and more people in previous years had already started to look towards more digital books and other materials. And the pandemic has largely accelerated this trend due to the closure of buildings to in-person browsing. This is continued to increase. We also noted last year there was some actions taken by publishers to limit the sale of ebooks to public libraries. Due to the pandemic, they have temporarily reversed those restrictions for now, at least. However, that's something that will impact these trends in future years, depending on what developments occur after the pandemic concludes in future years. But this is definitely expected to continue to increase the digital materials ownership and access in future years as people continue to look more and more towards those materials. Lastly, we have a chart on the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled for their patrons served and materials accessed. The chart shows declines in fiscal 2020. However, the agency does note that a key component of the operations for this library is mail circulation to their patrons, which was able to continue throughout the pandemic. Lastly, the recommended actions, DLS is recommending to concur with the governor's allowance. We don't have any other recommendations, so that concludes my presentation. We'll take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Quist, for the thorough analysis. Are there any questions for the analyst? Don't see anything. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions on the Senate side?
Nope, I don't see any either.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Quist. With that, we will turn to our Maryland State Librarian. We're pleased to be joined by Irene Padilla. Irene, and your team, please introduce anyone that you would like to speak. So I do see our state librarian here, Ms. Padilla. Hopefully she just, do see that. Irene, I believe that you're, Ms. Padilla, I believe you're muted, and there you go.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Welcome.
All right. Well, good afternoon, chairpersons and members of the committees. I am Irene Padilla, State Librarian, and with me today are Tamara Sarnoff, Director of Public Libraries and State Networking, John Owen, Director of the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, and Donna Liberto, Chief Financial Officer. We are here in support of the Maryland State Library Agency's operating budget, and I want to begin by thanking Samuel Quist for his extremely thorough analysis with which we concur. You have our written testimony, so I won't reiterate all of the State Library's accomplishments after being established as an independent agency just a little over 3 years ago. But since this hearing is being held in a format we simply could not have imagined at the same time last year, I'd like to very briefly highlight the strategic leadership role the agency played in 3 key areas to support the public library's response to the pandemic. Because I think this most clearly illustrates what we do and why the Maryland State Library Agency is important. First, because this agency administers state and federal funds for Maryland libraries, we were able to quickly distribute over $500,000 in unplanned special funding from the Federal CARES Act so that public library systems could purchase personal protective equipment and supplies, expand Wi-Fi hotspots, and add digital content to continue essential services. Second, because the agency provides leadership to promote planning and innovation in the development of library programs and services. We coordinated statewide guidance along with expert advice from health officials on the phased reopening of library facilities during COVID-19. And the state's libraries met the challenge by pivoting to programs in new formats and enhancing their services to communities. While buildings were closed or were only able to provide limited access to resources like public computers, libraries extended free Wi-Fi beyond their walls so residents could connect to the internet from library parking lots and other safe spaces. Library staff continue to engage customers by providing robust virtual programming, from story time to conversations on equity and justice. Since online programs are not limited by one's geographic location, people from anywhere in the state can participate in engaging and educational programs like workforce development and job searching skills, book discussions, and author events. In July, Maryland Public Libraries hosted an evening with Ibram X. Kendi, author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, which drew a live audience of 226,000 people from around the world. Last year, Maryland's libraries held more than 100,000 events, including over 57,000 programs for the state's youngest residents, with over 1.7 million children benefiting from early literacy and STEM activities, summer learning, and family programs. Libraries provided curbside pickup of books, remote printing, and 3D printing services, including the coordinated statewide effort, which delivered thousands of pieces of 3D printed PPE for first responders early on in the crisis. Third and finally, because this agency is committed to access for everyone, the Maryland State Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, renamed by unanimous approval of the Maryland General Assembly during the 2020 session, our dedicated staff provided continuous mail and phone service to 8,745 blind and low vision customers without any disruption during the pandemic. Maryland's libraries remain resilient and responsive to their community's needs and will help ensure that the state is well positioned for a rapid recovery. We are extremely grateful for your support of the Maryland State Library Agency and its mission. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Padilla. Are there any questions for our state librarian? Don't see any. All right, well, thank you so much for your, we know how important libraries are to our state and the fine work you do. So we all appreciate you. And with that, we will turn to our,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Padilla.
Thank you very much. Ms. Padilla, is there anyone else testifying on your end, or are you, is that a wrap?
No, that's a wrap.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Padilla and Mr. Chairman. Never want to get on the bad side of the library, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir.
So we'll now turn our attention to the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, otherwise known as TEDCO. We'll start out with the analysis by Emily Haskell. Ms. Haskell.
Thank you. Just pull it up on the screen. Can everyone see the analysis?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Emily Haskell, and I'll be presenting the analysis for the Maryland Technology Development Corporation, or TEDCO. As you can see in the operating budget summary on page 1, TEDCO's budget increases by a little less than 5% to a total of $27.1 million in fiscal 2022. This change is comprised of a $2.3 million increase in special funds for the Maryland Venture Fund, offset by a $1 million decrease in general funds for the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund. Before I get back to talking about fiscal 2022, there are a few items to discuss for fiscal 2020 and 2021, starting on page 2. The fiscal 2020 budget restricted $250,000 in general funds that were recognized as a planned reversion in last year's budget plan. However, these funds were unintentionally released. Although DBM notes that they expect TEDCO to revert these funds in fiscal 2021 to correct the error, DLS recommends that the negative deficiency proposed for TEDCO in fiscal 2021 be increased by $250,000 to make the reversion of these funds formal. As I just noted, there is a proposed negative deficiency in fiscal 2021, which consists of $10 million for the Maryland Technology Infrastructure Program. This funding was contingent on legislation creating the program, which did not pass. Also for fiscal 2021, TEDCO has received $5 million in special funds from the Rainy Day Fund to provide COVID-19 relief. This funding isn't recognized in the fiscal 2021 working appropriation yet, as the budget amendment is still being processed. TEDCO is using the funding to create a new program called the Rural and Underserved Business Recovery from Impact of COVID-19 Program, or RUBRIC. The program will provide grants of up to $200,000 to economically or socially disadvantaged businesses or rural businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. Applications recently opened and will be scored based on factors including barriers to accessing other forms of capital, as well as how the company plans to use funds to address the impact of COVID-19. Exhibit 1 on pages 3 and 4 shows TEDCO's proposed budget for fiscal 2022. As I mentioned earlier, there's a $1 million decrease for the Stem Cell Research Fund, which supports research to address heart disease, cancer, stroke, and other diseases. TEDCO notes that this reduction may lead to fewer projects receiving funding or less funding per project. The only other program in TEDCO with significant change in the budget for fiscal 2022 is the Maryland Venture Fund. Special funds for the program increased $2.3 million to $6.5 million. While this level of funding is quite a bit higher than the past 2 years, it is only slightly higher than fiscal 2018 and 2019 spending. The MVF had paused investments due to issues uncovered in the 2019 audit, and TEDCO anticipates an increase in demand following the freeze, which fully ended in November 2020. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the Builder program, which has grown significantly over the past couple of years with an appropriation of $1 million in general funds annually starting in fiscal 2020. The program provides investments as well as mentorship and other services to early stage companies that are led by socially or economically disadvantaged entrepreneurs. The participating companies take part in a 24-week program that includes executive support and networking opportunities and is designed to better position the companies to obtain follow-on investments. Exhibit 3 on page 7 shows that while the number of companies in the program has grown to 17 in fiscal 2020, with $3 million obtained in follow-on funding, the program's applications still far exceed the available resources. Exhibit 4 on page 9 shows all of the awards that have been made so far under the Builder program, as well as the program's predecessor, which TEDCO funded prior to fiscal 2020 using its own reserve funds. Awards have been made to 22 companies, out of which 20 are minority-led and 11 are women-led. In addition to awards, the annual $1 million appropriation is used for support services, such as providing mentorship and loaned executives to the participating companies. As you can see, $450,000 was used for investments in fiscal 2020, while the remainder went towards support services as well as administrative expenses. Given that less than 50% of the appropriation funded company awards, DLS has asked TEDCO to comment on this distribution of funds. Finally, page 10 shows the DLS recommendation. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the analyst? Ms. Haskell, thank you for that thorough analysis. We appreciate it. Are there any questions for the analyst? Again, just a reminder, utilize the raise hand feature under the reactions. I don't see any on my end. Chairman Barnes, you see any on your end?
No.
Okay, so we'll move on to Mr. Troy Lamel-Stovall, Executive Director and CEO of TEDCO. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you. Great seeing both of you, both chairmen. Chairman Zucker, Chairman Barnes, great seeing both of you. And members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss TEDCO's fiscal 2022 budget request. I am joined by TEDCO's leadership, as well as Dr. Deborah Matthews, Chair of the Stem Cell Commission, and Mr. Robert Hallenbach, the MII Chair, as well as 2 of our portfolio companies who will share their stories with you at my conclusion. I'd also like to thank the great analysis done by DLS analyst Emily Haskell. Thank you for your cooperation over the last few months. My name is Troy Lamel-Stovall, and I humbly serve as the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of TEDCO. Now, TEDCO was created by you, the legislature, in 1998 to assist in the transfer of research and technology from Maryland universities and federal laboratories into the commercial marketplace and to assist in commercializing private sector research. It has evolved to be Maryland's state-backed agency that fosters a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship by investing in and providing support to the state's early stage and startup businesses. I started as a CEO and executive director in September of 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. And in that time, and with the support of the TEDCO Board of Directors and its chair, Ms. Myra Norton, TEDCO has become even more focused on becoming guided by a set of principles that are our core values, serving as a lighthouse to help navigate us individually and collectively, especially when times and our choices are difficult. Like a lighthouse does for ships at sea, our core values expose dangerous paths and provide a safe passage to our destination. That passage may not be the most expedient or easiest, and may even involve some risks, but it avoids those things that eventually will cause a shipwreck. The lighthouse provides us an unwavering guide that must be followed to avoid such disaster. For TEDCO, our core values of accountability, collaboration, integrity, respect, and stewardship are our unwavering guide. Using those core values, TEDCO, with its economic development mission and its cohesive ties to the life sciences community, is a vital component to solutions to both the economic downturn and to issues related to the current or even the next pandemic. A 2018 independent study concluded that TEDCO generates significant economic and fiscal returns to the state, totaling over $1.6 billion. TEDCO has invested in companies that are playing key roles fighting COVID-19. The Maryland Innovation District, or MII, portfolio company, Emoca Mobile Health, is putting its mobile video technology to work in response to the crisis. The Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund has funded research that has discovered therapeutic remedies easing respiratory symptoms in COVID-19 patients. Additionally, TEDCO has funded Baltimore-based ClearMass, a company making medical masks used by the deaf and hard of hearing. As Ms. Haskell just noted, I'm very happy to announce today the launch of our Rural and Underserved Business Recovery from Impact of COVID, or rubric. Thanks to Governor Hogan, TEDCO has $5 million to provide economic relief to early stage, socially and economically disadvantaged or rural early stage technology-based firms impacted by COVID. These funds are for those firms that are in need of bridge finance to survive and prosper as the economic downturn and COVID-19 crisis subsides. My submitted testimony provides further details of our programs and specific achievements made in this last fiscal year. But allow me to conclude responding to the DLS analysis, and let me start with the Builder Fund, where it was requested, where comments were on the use of the Builder Funds, as Ms. Haskell noted, that were less than 50% of appropriated funds. As she also noted, the Builder Fund was created for financially and operational support the development of startup companies run by entrepreneurs who demonstrate a socially or economically disadvantaged background that hinders access to traditional forms of capital and executive networks at the pre-seed stage. And that's an important part of this. The importance of the Builder Fund has been even more amplified by COVID and the heightened awareness of wealth inequalities. Again, as Ms. Haskell noted, a key component of the program is providing customized advisory services based on each company's needs. Given these companies are at a pre-seed stage, it is extremely uncommon for a company to have a full executive team. By working with the founders to understand their expertise gaps, TEDCO pairs them with a vetted industry expert to complete an agreed upon set of milestones. In doing so, we save those founders and those companies time, energy, and money. Essentially, TEDCO provides additional employees to work for the companies at no cost to them. These supplemental resources are extremely common at the pre-seed investment stage. And based on our exit interviews and the progress our founders have made, we know that the funding is an efficient use of the program's funding. This is evident given of the almost $900,000 in investments in 17 builder funds, 8 of those firms have raised an additional $9 million. The second DLS comment concerns the $250,000 in restricted fiscal 20 funds that were allocated to TEDCO, but should have been reverted, but were not, and TEDCO concurs with that recommendation. In conclusion, Chairman, I would like to thank members of the subcommittees for their courtesy towards myself and TEDCO and for your steadfast support of our programs. And given my newness as a rookie, I'm here with some of my colleagues. If you stump me on any questions, but more importantly, I hope you're going to enjoy hearing from our 2 portfolio firms, Minor Decliner and Valkyrie Software Solutions. I'm open for questions, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that testimony. Is there any questions? I don't see any. Mr. Chairman, you see any on your end?
I do not. Thanks for the testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we'll now, I'm just going to go in the order that they signed up, Mr. Executive Director, and then so we've got a few. Let's go to Mr. Chad Hall, founder and CEO of Remodel Mate Incorporated.
I don't know if he got to sign up in time. If he's on, that'd be great. But we got note that he wasn't able to sign up with the process that was there.
I don't see him. No problem. Ron Taub, president of Minor Decliner.
There you go.
There you go. You're on.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ron Taub. I am the founder of Minor Decliner. Minor Decliner is a leader in age verification systems, and we are located in Queen Anne's County, Stevensville, Maryland, right across from the Bay Bridge. So what we do is help retailers not sell age-restricted products to anyone underage. And those age-restricted products cover everything from alcohol, tobacco, vape, cannabis in the states that make it legal, lottery tickets, and coming on CBD and casino gaming. So the way we help retailers not to sell to kids is we provide them with an ID scanning solution that gives them a quick and easy answer. And it's a large problem in the industry. Most of the people, the tests show that without an age verification system, they will routinely sell to somebody underage in the 20% range. I'm here in strong support of TEDCO and the funding they receive because they have helped me significantly in the period of time that I have known them. They've supported me by giving me key and critical program support for help for all the entrepreneurial innovation we needed to take, and by helping me to enroll in programs that really allowed me to see a strategic path forward in different venues for the company. We participated in the I-Corps program, we participated in the Prelude Pitch, and made extensive use of their network advisors. Thanks to TEDCO and the connections we've received, we have a manufacturing source in Baltimore City where we're able to work with those guys to hire people to put some of our products together. We've hired patent firms in Maryland to pursue our intellectual property portfolio. And as a really direct result of the help in TEDCO, I now sit on the age verification board of the National Association of Convenience Stores, helping setting policy really through the industry. So in summary, I really appreciate everything that TEDCO and their network advisors and their team has helped me with. I value them as a strong member of my small team. And I hope that with their continued help, I can continue to grow, add jobs, and hire other Maryland firms to support our mission of reducing the amount of kids that get their hands on underage products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I don't see any. Mr. Chairman, see any on your end? Well, thank you very much again for that testimony. We'll now turn to Mr. Cameron Kane, founder and CEO of Valkyrie Software Solutions. Mr. Kane, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, afternoon at this point. Hi, I'm Cameron Kane. I'm a graduating super senior at Salisbury University, and I'm the technical founder of Valkyrie Software Solutions. This company I founded in 2017, and its main mission is to give visual indicators to directional sound, an assistive technology feature for video games for the deaf and hard of hearing community. Now, all of us are very familiar with this distance, learning and professional life and everything. It's something that we can all kind of resonate with the isolation. This is something that members of any disabled community face in the day-to-day life outside of the pandemic, and it's further worsened by the current pandemic. So something like this would allow them to be able to play games more competitively and play games that they previously weren't able to play with their friends and online in that sort of scenario. Now, I started working on this in 2017, and at that time, I was a sophomore at Salisbury University, and I was really just, pursuing the computer science side of it. I wasn't necessarily into the business side, but members of that Salisbury University community pushed me to get in touch with the Entrepreneurship Hub and attend those workshops. And it really started to hit me that a business was the way to solve this problem at scale. And so, through one of those workshops, I met Bill Bernard, and through Bill Bernard, he's a TEDCO employee and a mentor for their rural business program. I met Anne and other, members of the TEDCO family, and was able to take advantage of both the Prelude Pitch and then go to the NSF I-Corps program, kind of entrepreneurship for researchers, as it were. And pretty much through that program, I completely flipped exactly who I was going to be as a researcher, but also as an entrepreneur and what my business was going to be. I was able to, through that I-Corps program, chase down a member of the FCC Disability Advisory Committee, the founder of Able Gamers Charity, which is kind of the thought leader in accessibility in gaming in West Virginia. Just the networking and the encouragement and the support, both funding-wise in terms of making sure I could go to I-Corps, and instrumentally as just, an overhead about giving me advice, over these 3 years has really enabled me to not only be prepared to apply for Maryland Institutional Partnerships Program, but the Builder Program and the University Systems of Maryland Momentum Fund. Those are on the docket, and I'm very well positioned to apply for those thanks to TEDCO.
Well, thank you very much. And normally when we start these hearings, we remind everyone that you've got 2 minutes to present, but you all, I don't know if it's because you all are in technology, but you all have been very succinct and on time. So Chairman Barnes and I have not had to remind everyone because you've been giving very thorough and precise testimony. Thank you, everybody, for that. Are there any questions for Mr. Kane? I don't see any. Mr. Chairman, see any on your end?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll now turn to Mr. Robert Hallenbeck with the Maryland Innovation Initiative. And just remind yourself to just remember to unmute yourself.
I have unmuted myself.
There you go.
I have to, excuse me. I'm Bob Hollenbeck. I have had the privilege of being the chair of the Maryland Innovation Initiative since its inception. And I want to just thank the legislature for all of the good things that you've done to continue to support us. Working with the 5 institutions, the major research institutions in the state, has given me great personal insight into all of the really great things that are going on. And you've just heard some of them here from these portfolio companies. At some point down the road, we'd like to bring some more companies in, and certainly if we're allowed, when we can, to have a meeting like we had last year, right before everything shut down. There's such good stuff going on that I think you'll continue to fund this program, and we thank you for that funding, and continue to, and perhaps even continue to grow it, to expand it beyond just the 5 major research universities into some other areas where I think we can continue to do some great work. So again, thank you very much for your support.
Well, thank you very much for that great testimony. Is there any questions for the panelists? Seeing none, Mr. Chair, do you see any on your end?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll now turn to Miss Deborah Matthews, Maryland Stem Cell Research.
Yes, hello. Thank you, chairpersons and members of the committee. As noted in the analysis, the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund has received a cut in this round. I mean, without a doubt, the pandemic has underscored the importance of funding research and innovation and how dependent we are as a society on medical research to deliver cures. The Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund is supporting research to address the top 10 diseases and conditions in Maryland, as noted in the analysis, including heart disease, cancer, stroke, respiratory disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, influenza, and more. And as previously noted, the fund is also supporting work specifically on COVID-19. As with prior cuts, the proposed budget will require us to make difficult decisions about whether we will fund fewer projects, provide less funding per award, and/or eliminate programs. And honestly, the commission and our incredibly hardworking and dedicated staff would rather be growing our programs and the research and development bench in Maryland. More information can be found in both our submitted written testimony and in a number of testimonies that were submitted in support of the Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund. On behalf of the commission, I respectfully ask the joint committees to approve our fiscal year 2022 budget.
Well, thank you very much for that. And yeah, we're all troubled by the cut of $1 million, especially since it's helping toward preventative medicine and new solutions. But any questions for this panelist? Mr. Chairman, do you see any on your end?
I don't, but let me just echo your sentiment, Mr. Chairman, from the House perspective, that we certainly appreciate this important research. We certainly noticed the $1 million cut. These committees are keenly aware of that, and we do know how important the work you do is. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll now turn to Mr. Tom Lewis with Johns Hopkins. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Zucker, Chairman Barnes, senators, delegates, thanks very much for taking the time to listen today to this. I know you sit in front of computers a lot. My name is Tom Lewis, Vice President of Government and Community Affairs for Johns Hopkins, and I just want to hit a couple of points. The fund is now $7.2 million. This is the lowest that it's been since it was started. It started out with the goal of 20 million and now down to 7.2. We really support this program. We find it to be really helpful, and it sends a tough message. I know you have to make tough decisions, but hit a couple of high points. Number one, this is a program where we get the opportunity here in Maryland to recruit young investigators, because here's a fund that's just for Maryland. And we get some of the best and the brightest to come to Hopkins and other institutions here. And this is a fund where they have an opportunity to get that first grant. And then that leads them to be able to apply and have a record to get NIH grants of a much higher amount. That's a tremendous benefit. We also have a lot of experienced researchers who deal with this. I would note that California just recently passed the referendum for $5.5 billion for stem cell research. Now, we're not going head to head with California, but what we have here in Maryland is a long history of stable funding that provides us with the opportunity to keep our researchers, recruit young researchers, and they don't want to, move their families, their research labs, and so forth. So that's a benefit. And then you've heard a little bit about this, but the reality is there is a lot of research, not just on COVID right now, but also on a lot of issues related to disparities where the Black and brown communities here in Maryland and elsewhere in the country are affected more by some of these issues of stroke, heart disease, sickle cell, and other programs that are really being affected and seeing gains from stem cell. I want to thank you very much for your time, and hope that you can restore the cut or certainly not have to cut this area any further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. We do have some questions, and thank you for your testimony. Senator Alfred?
Tom, so good to see you. Hope you and the family are doing well.
Thank you, Senator.
I just want to echo, this seems possibly the worst time in human history to cut this type of research. So I just want to thank you for the work that you and everybody here today does on this. And Tom, I heard you say, not the word, but this is certainly a fund that is leveraged probably through university and private and federal funding. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have numbers for us in terms of how this fund is leveraged for greater impact?
Yeah, we can. I can get that back to you. One of the leverage points, though, is this opportunity for young researchers to get into the game, to get a record of research, and then that allows them to be more competitive for NIH research, where Hopkins is the #1 in the country for many, many years. This is a nice entry point for that.
Gotcha.
But I'll get you those other numbers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any. Mr. Chairman, you see any on your end?
I don't see any on our end. I do want to say hello to our good friend Tom Lewis, though. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on the new role this year as chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to move us to adjournment, but before I do that, is there anyone else that I missed, Mr. Stovall, from your end that signed up that we may have overlooked that was planning on testifying? I thought we got everybody. I just wanted to check.
No, I think you did. And I appreciate the comments, particularly those towards the stem cell. We, if I may, Senator Alfred, it's not just the leverage that Dr. Lewis talked about, but it's a leverage as they come their way through the TEDCO funds as well, because many of them come on into TEDCO and get additional funds through our pre-seed and seed fund. So yes, it is a tremendous leverage point, but we can get you those exact numbers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, do you have any last comments before we adjourn?
No, thanks to all our presenters today.
Thank you. Everybody be safe.
Ditto to that.